You've seen thousands of birds. At your feeder. Along the trail. On the wire above the street. And yet. You have almost certainly never found a dead one. Not on the lawn after a storm. Not beneath a tree in winter. Not anywhere you can name. Sit with that. Because the longer you hold it, the stranger it becomes. Birds die every single day. Millions of them. Disease. Cold. Hunger. The slow failure of a small body. That was never built to last long. Studies estimate that roughly half of all songbirds die within their first year of life. Half. For every cardinal at your feeder this morning. Statistically, half of its siblings from last spring are already gone. Your yard looks exactly the same as it always does. Where are they? This question turns out to be stranger than it sounds. And the answer, followed all the way through, reveals something about the world around you that most people never arrive at. Stay with this. Because the last part involves something researchers spent decades assuming was impossible. First, the numbers. North America holds roughly 7.5 billion land birds at any given time. Annual mortality for adult songbirds runs between 40 and 60%. That means somewhere between 3 and 4.5 billion birds die on this continent every year. 4.5 billion. If even a fraction of those bodies stayed visible for more than a few hours, you would see dead birds everywhere. Every park. Every street. Every trail you've ever walked. You don't. The gap between how many birds are dying and how few you ever encounter is one of the quietest anomalies in the natural world. It has an explanation. 3 of them, actually. Each one a little harder to sit with than the last. The first begins before the bird is even dead. When a bird is truly sick. In the final hours. Something in its behavior changes. Not dramatically. Quietly. It moves toward cover. Dense undergrowth. The interior of a shrub. The low dark space at the base of a hedgerow. Where light barely reaches and nothing much moves. A healthy bird lives in open space. Because open space is survival. Sight lines, escape routes, room to react. But a bird whose body has begun to fail it does what 100 million years of instinct offers as the only remaining option. It hides. Not as a choice. The same threat response that kept its ancestors alive simply runs its final program. A bird that cannot escape conceals itself instead. And the place it chooses to spend its last hours is the same place that keeps its body from ever being found. Right now, within a few hundred yards of where you are, there is undergrowth you've never looked into. Shrubs whose lower branches you've never touched. Ground cover you've walked past. For years. Without a second thought. The birds are in there. They've always been in there. The absence you've sensed your whole life was never really an absence at all. But some birds do die in the open. On lawns. On driveways. On sidewalks. And those bodies vanish too. Faster than most people would believe. Research on scavenger efficiency in urban and suburban environments puts the average visibility window for a small bird carcass at between 30 minutes and 4 hours. 30 minutes. Many sick birds die before dawn. The coldest hours. When a weakened metabolism finally loses its hold. By the time the sky lightens, the lawn is clear. You make coffee. You look out. Nothing. You never had the chance to know. The network that removes these bodies is not dramatic. No vultures. No visible predators. It begins with insects. Ants, beetles, flies. Arriving within minutes in warm weather. Beginning a quiet process of reduction. That is more thorough than most people would care to imagine. Then the larger scavengers. Cats moving through suburban yards at 3 a.m. Along routes they've mapped across years of nights. Raccoons. Foxes. Possums. Creatures most people never see. Doing work most people never think about. Crows, scanning their territories from the first gray light. Spotting a carcass on open ground. Before most households have stirred. Researchers studying bird mortality in the field. Sometimes have to check sites every few hours. Simply to document deaths. Before the evidence is removed. That is how narrow the window is. But the third part is different. Because it doesn't involve a window at all. Some birds never leave a body to find. A sharp-shinned hawk takes a chickadee mid-flight. One moment the bird is moving through cold air. The next. Nothing. The hawk carries it out of sight. Consumes it on a hidden perch. And drops what remains. Somewhere you will never walk. A Cooper's hawk takes a mourning dove at your feeder. You hear it before you understand it. By the time you reach the window, both birds are gone. A few feathers drift across the concrete. Within the hour, those two have disappeared. Blown away, or lifted by other birds. And woven quietly into nests. Owls leave even less. A screech owl hunting in full silence can take a sleeping bird from its roost. Without disturbing the air below. Hours later, far from where it happened. It drops a small dense pellet beneath a tree. Bones and feathers compressed to the size of a thumb. The only record that the bird existed. Walked past, every day. By people who don't know what they're looking at. Bring it together. The dying bird retreating into cover. The scavenger network clearing any exposed body within hours. Predation consuming birds completely. Scattering evidence far from the site. The probability of encountering a dead bird. In the course of an ordinary day. Approaches zero. Not because they aren't dying. Because every process that follows death. Has been refined, across deep time. To be efficient, invisible, and complete. Nature processes its dead quietly. Without ceremony. Without leaving much behind. Most of us move through this every day. Without once considering what the stillness is made of. And then there is the part that changes the register entirely. For most of the history of ornithology. One assumption held without much examination. Birds do not understand death. They lack the architecture for it. Mortality is something recognized. Responded to. Remembered. That was a human domain. Perhaps a primate domain. Not something occurring inside a bird. Then researchers started watching crows. And the assumption quietly began to give way. A 2015 study from the University of Washington documented something that didn't fit the model. When crows encountered a dead crow, they didn't move on. They gathered. Sometimes dozens of birds. Arriving from different directions. Circling, calling, landing nearby. Remaining at the site. For 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes longer. The behavior was consistent across populations. And it was not predator response. The crows were not reacting to a threat in the trees. They were responding to what was on the ground. To the fact that it was there. To the fact that it was still. But this is the detail that stays with you. After these gatherings, the crows stopped returning to those locations. 4 weeks. Even when the area fell within their territory. Even when food was available there. The place had changed for them. The death had left something in the location that the living crows could not move past. What that something is. Researchers are careful here. The language of grief, mourning, ritual. These words carry human weight that the evidence doesn't yet fully support. But here is what the evidence does show. Plainly and without embellishment. These birds noticed. They organized around something that was gone. Their behavior in the days and weeks that followed was altered by the encounter. Not instinctively altered. Memorially altered. Magpies have been observed placing grass near the bodies of dead magpies. A behavior with no survival function anyone has identified. Western scrub jays stop caching food near a dead jay. They call more. They linger. As if the social world they navigate has changed shape. And they are finding the new edges of it. Whether this is cognition or instinct. Whether it is something close to grief. Or something we don't have a word for yet. These questions remain genuinely open. What is not open is whether it is happening. It is. The bird at your feeder. The one on the wire above your street. The one whose name you may not know. It exists inside systems far older than our awareness of them. It navigates a world that is not simple. And it may carry something. Some recognition. Some interior response to loss. That we spent a very long time assuming it couldn't. Here is what remains. The absence you've noticed your entire life. The quiet impossibility of a world full of birds that never seem to die is not a mystery. It is ecology, running exactly as it should. Precise. Efficient. Indifferent to whether anyone notices. The birds are there. In the undergrowth at the edge of every yard you've walked through. In the dark hours before dawn. In the quiet movement of things. Your neighborhood contains but never shows you. And above it all. In the memory of a crow. That gathered around something on the ground. And then never came back to that place. Something else is present. Something older than the question. Something we are still finding the right tools to see. The next time you walk outside into an ordinary morning. The lawn still wet, the light not yet full. A bird calling somewhere just out of sight. You'll know something about the quiet that you didn't know before. The world will look the same. But it won't feel that way. Have you ever found a dead bird? Where was it? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. If this kind of slow attention to the hidden world is what you come here for, subscribe before you go. There is more. I'll see you in the next one.